Good morning. Today is Wednesday, February 10th, 2021, and welcome to a brand new episode of JLJ This Morning. I am your panel moderator, Casey Huchison, and before we get into everything, let's check in on our co-host. Mr. Joseph Willis, how are you?
Fantastic. Feeling good.
Wonderful.
How are you?
I'm doing well myself.
Let's keep going.
And then the always beautiful Miss Emmy Morgan, how are you?
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you for lying to me. I appreciate it. I like a lie every now and then.
And then the always lovely and graceful Miss Veronica Dang, how are you?
Pandemic good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that like on a good scale of 10? Is that like a 4 or?
Like that. We're here. Happy to
Yeah.
be with everybody.
I felt that right here.
Yes,
Right
in
there.
the soul.
Mm.
So let's just get into the political side of things, because much like all the weeks that pass by in a year, there's always something political to discuss. And this is more about political cancellation, rather. And so, this is a topic that has gone on for so long since the election that just happened. And, 3 people that have been silenced recently in a way are Marjorie Taylor Greene, former President Donald Trump, and Liz Cheney. So let's discuss first Marjorie Taylor Greene out of that pact. Marjorie Taylor Greene is somebody, and this is coming straight from, news outlets. I just want to read here what she is a supporter of for the overall context of why she has been let go from her committee. So Marjorie Taylor Greene is somebody that supports false flag shootings, 9/11 conspiracies, that the 2020 election was rigged, Pizzagate, and QAnon. Furthermore, once Biden was elected, we all remember the famous video that came out of Greene, who said she had filed articles of impeachment against Biden within the first 2 days of his presidency. Furthermore, she allegedly supported the execution of high-profile Democratic politicians. Because of all of this, because of violence against the government, she was removed from the House and relieved she was removed by the House, and relieved of her duties in congressional committees. And furthermore, 11 Republicans came out in support of letting her go from her congressional committee duties. So Joe, let's go to you first. What do you think of the very problematic, in my opinion, Marjorie Taylor Greene situation?
She's a holdout from, this really toxic environment that was created during Trump's presidency. I can't say it started there, because all of the Pizzagate stuff, the, Sandy Hook conspiracy stuff, even all the way back to 9/11. I mean, there's conspiracy theories that just go back and, unending. But at the end of the day, the people that support it and people that are in the public eye, like her, who have a duty to her constituents to serve their best interests, the fact that these are the things that she's focusing on, it's embarrassing. And Republicans had their opportunity to, at least in some way, shape, or form, publicly denounce some of the crazy stuff that she said. And instead, she marches out onto the congressional floor and says, nah, I don't really believe some of this stuff. And they give her a pass. So Democrats really didn't have a choice. They had to have some repercussions for this kind of crazy behavior. And whether she wants to admit that these are theories that she's held, or she just wants to assume, just like Donald Trump, that all of these videos and documented comments on social media or wherever they're documented are just somehow fake media, fake news, whatever it is. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to those of us that understand that whether it's said, and there's video evidence of it, or it's written, that these things are valid. It's a problem, and you either own it and move past it and apologize, or you're going to be held accountable for it. And I think we're moving past that period of time where people are not held accountable for those types of crazy behaviors.
I couldn't agree with you more. And, you had brought up something very interesting about her duty to the people, when she got into our government. Because, at some point, I don't really care what side you're on. I don't care what you identify with. It's more about looking at you as a person. You take one belief. I don't necessarily care if you're Republican, but what do you believe as a Republican is what I care about. And same thing with being Democrat. And at the end of the day, I think she failed to serve the people as she was called to do. Instead, she decided to focus on everything that isn't real. And, truly, I'm going to use a Republican term here. She decided to focus on fake news. So, Emmy, let's go to you on the Marjorie Taylor Greene situation. What do you think of how this built up? Just her believing all of these things and then eventually action being taken against her.
I think it's kind of funny on 2 points. One, Republicans and anyone who supports Trump says all the time, they say, when Trump got banned from Twitter, they said, First Amendment. But the second that she does something that's clearly awful and should be stripping her of her duties, they take away her First Amendment right, so to speak. And number two, I think that this more than likely builds a case against Trump. If she can say what she said and get her duties stripped from her, this man incited a riot. So maybe he should be canceled as well, you think? I unlike Joe, I think I'm way past the point of people apologizing for their bad behavior. It's 2021. Own it and own being canceled. Period. End of story. Sorry. I don't want to hear your apology. I don't want to get too in depth with it, but that guy in the country music scene, Morgan Wallen, said something really, like, he said the N-word. He apologized, and then he thought that would make everything better. He's got no record label. He's got no airplay. I'm done accepting apologies. You need to just exit stage right.
Well, and, I think it's different from trying to apologize and being the same person versus apologizing and showing change. Clearly, in my opinion, Marjorie is not somebody who is going to show any type of change. She is who she is.
Especially the violence against your peers. Like,
yes.
You supporting that? No, you need to be canceled or maybe even locked up. I'm not even joking. I think maybe locked up.
So then, another person that has been discussed as kind of one of these three being not really, and I don't even want to say silence because, they're allowed to voice their opinion. Just let's say moved on to a different world, basically. So anyway, President Biden, and this comes straight from the reporting of the Washington Post, President Biden said that former President Donald Trump should not have access to classified information in the form of the briefings usually given to ex-presidents, citing Trump's erratic behavior and the risk that he might recklessly reveal sensitive information. Furthermore, Biden stopped short of announcing that he had officially decided to prevent his predecessor from receiving the briefings, which are traditionally given before former presidents travel abroad, particularly in an official capacity. And then it goes on to say, but Biden has the unilateral authority to deny intelligence access to anyone he chooses. And he remarks amounted to a statement that Trump, who for 4 years controlled the entire U.S. security apparatus, was himself a security risk. It finally ends by saying denying the briefings to a former president would be an unprecedented action. And Biden's remark made during an appearance on CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell emphasized the president's concern and that of other officials that Trump poses a risk to national security because of what he might disclose. So, Veronica, are you somebody who believes wholeheartedly in what Biden has presented as his case for possibly denying access to these briefings?
I mean, it's understandable. This person has been not supportive of the US and seems to care more about dictators. And so the question is, like, if he gets these briefings, is it going to go to the highest bidder? I mean, he owes these some of these dictators' countries a lot of money. So it's pretty dangerous. But then on the other hand, I kind of want him to have him, but like give him like the fake information, see if he like passes it on. So I'm like a little torn because it's like either deny him, but you could also catch him because he's dumb enough to like pass on bad information and try to make money off of it.
But even if we catch him, for some reason, nobody wants to like prosecute him. So even if we catch him in this trap, he'll say, "Oh, look what the Democrats did. They trapped me on purpose." Ugh, it's so annoying.
I think eventually enough of it will happen. I mean, he's starting. Even I'm still hopeful that the impeachment will turn to conviction, but if not, I mean, there's still the states. They're going through with it. You know?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's so many lawsuits. They're not all going to just go away.
And I'm that type of person because I've had this discussion with Emmy before, actually, off the show, of course. And I'm somebody who did try to look at it from the middle of the road because one of the big reasons, which I think a lot of people aren't mentioning, is they're clued in about these briefings because they also want advice sometimes from former presidents on how they would have dealt with the situation, no matter if you come from the Democratic side or the Republican side. And in my opinion, I don't blame Biden for wanting to do this because Trump, in my opinion, was clearly somebody who is erratic, and you have that fear of national security.
And he's not going to share information with them because he wouldn't do that during the transition.
Yes, exactly. And you have him backing down from being supportive of the transition. But my thing is, what's interesting about this is what CBS Evening News brought up is we've never had to look at this before. Trump clearly, I mean, come on now, he knows things from his 4 years as president. But now, we have to trust to put his advice aside because God only knows what his advice would be in a press briefing. But we have to put aside what he's found out in 4 years and trust that it can come from another source. It's such an unprecedented situation that we're looking at because of Trump's previous actions. So, Joe, before we move on to Liz Cheney, very briefly, what are your thoughts on this?
There's two really, really important things about Trump even receiving these briefings. And the first thing, he didn't read them when he was getting them. For 4 years, he literally took them and threw them aside and ignored what was in there. He wanted his aides and anyone that would be briefing him to provide him the Cliff Notes version of everything. He couldn't be bothered to read them in the first place. I don't know why he would care if he's not getting them now. The second thing, and probably the most relevant to what's happening right now, is his impeachment. He was getting briefings, the same briefings that the entire security apparatus within Washington, D.C. was getting, that there was going to be these groups that were going to start trouble and that they were largely white supremacist, right-wing radical groups. And he knew that was going to be happening because they were getting the same briefings. So even if he got the Cliff Notes version of that, he squandered that information. And from what it sounds like, he took that information and made it that much worse. He amplified it and threw gas on the fire. Why would you trust someone in that situation? Why would you trust someone in the highest echelon of our government to have that information, that access to information, especially now that he's not even in public office and can utilize it for that much more nefarious reasons? It's just a terrible idea. And, frankly, I think the transition period has given us enough information to know that he can't be trusted with the information when he was president, I have even less desire to see him have access to it after.
And he shares it with his like cronies.
Yeah.
Now take it one step further. Why would we want to give high-level government information to someone facing an impeachment trial right now? Like, what? I don't want your advice, dude. You're getting impeached.
Well, and I
don't like
think
your
it's also interesting to note that there are still 4 other former living presidents. There is Jimmy Carter, there is Bill Clinton, there is George W. Bush, and there is Barack Obama. So either way, I mean, you are getting advice,
right?
Potential advice from both sides. You are getting advice from both sides of the coin.
Mhm.
And it's
so-
telling that like the president's like it's a kind of a club because there's very few people, especially that are alive still. That
Exactly.
And for whatever reason, they seem to do these events without him. Very
Wonderful.
telling.
So of course, I brought up to Joe that we were going to discuss Liz Cheney. I think that's one of the most important things to discuss. And I do want to read this from AP News, who beautifully summed it up, as they always do. So Liz Cheney, the third-ranking House GOP leader, said Sunday she was untethered by a censure from Wyoming Republicans and criticism from some House colleagues over her vote to impeach Donald Trump, and will not resign or back off of the former president. Cheney said the oath she took to the Constitution compelled her vote for impeachment, and her words, and it doesn't bend to partisanship, it doesn't bend to political pressure. What do you make of the whole Liz situation, especially as her being someone who said, I'm not going to back down, kind of like the opposite of Marjorie Greene, where Liz wants to say, yeah, I'm not going to stop serving the people in my way that I've been called to by the Constitution. What do you think of that?
I think it's sexist on their part. Here's why. Mitt Romney is very vocal about his opposition to Trump and support of the impeachment trial. He's not been stripped of his duties at all. He's not been silenced. Again, it goes back to that Second Amendment point that I think they were almost forced to silence Marjorie, but I think they've chosen to silence Liz because of her opposition towards Trump. And that's dissension in the ranks that I'm just sitting back, got my popcorn, I'm just popping one kernel at a time, just watching that GOP explode inside of itself. I just think it's hilarious.
Emmy, you brought up popcorn, and as a quick side note, what do you like on your popcorn? Because now my mouth's watering. Sorry, Liz.
Don't like butter because it makes my fingers all gross. And then I heard a joke that butter is allegedly the sweat between Dan Connor's balls. So like after I heard that joke, I like can't eat buttered popcorn.
It's just turned very quickly.
I know.
Yeah, I know, right? I expected her to say, like I like a little bit of garlic powder and
No,
a little bit of pepper.
no pepper.
Cheetos popcorn.
Oh my
I
god.
like white
So
cheddar
good.
popcorn. White cheddar popcorn is my favorite.
So anyway, yeah, sorry, Liz Cheney, but she brought up popcorn. I'm just saying.
Sorry.
I think Liz would understand. So anyway, Joe, let's go to you because Emmy had brought up sexism, which I think is very clear here as well. Do you agree with Emmy on that? And then how do you feel about the Liz Cheney
Yeah, Joe, do you agree?
Well, Emmy, I think in a lot of ways it does reveal a high amount of sexism in the GOP. I think at the end of the day, this is just an opportunity to pick somebody in the party who they want to
Pick on.
I guess make the public the public spectacle of the face of opposition. The party's split. It's going to continue to see this divide and this wedge be inserted into it. But Mitt Romney, for some reason, has
Untouchable.
Well, he's been on the fence about so many things. So they probably think that he'll end up going back to supporting Trump for whatever reason. But I think the most powerful thing about what Liz Cheney has done is that she has not backed down. She has stood her ground on this situation. And to me, that's something that's worth its weight in gold for her as a as a politician, and as someone for the voice of her constituents, and not saying that the Wyoming seat is the most valued seat within the House, but she's number 3 in the House in terms of the Republican Party. That's a big deal to have that responsibility in that role, and to continue to stand her ground, I think is an amazing testament to her character. And, hopefully other people will begin to see that there's some value in that. But it's sad. It's sad that her own party chooses to overlook Mitt Romney and vilify her for her views.
Well, I mean, the House they're having a split about whether they go back to like traditional conservative values and pro-business, or we go to like crazy land, QAnon, Trump wing of the party. Yeah. So a lot of that is that because Mitt Romney's in a safe seat and it's not really Trump country, whereas Wyoming is Trump country. Mm-hmm. So for her to stand up and stand for values, I salute her for that. But she also knows because her dad is Dick Cheney, or she's a Dick Cheney person, and they know the person of the White House. You know what I mean? They know what the president's supposed to be doing.
And I think
these people like Marjorie Taylor Greene who got in randomly and is still in their they're freshmen in Congress, and now they got kicked off their committees and can't do anything.
And, it's very interesting. I think, if you take out all the craziness of the Republican Party, which I know is a very hard thing to do, let's just, close our eyes and imagine for a moment. But if you, take out the craziness of it, they are clearly having an identity struggle of what to be. They don't know what they want this party to be. And I think that problem is most apparent. I think it was a little bit apparent during when the pandemic was, coming about last year. But I think it's even more apparent now with Trump going into his impeachment trial in the Senate in the coming days. And I think it's a huge problem for the government. Here in the US, we've divided our government now into 2 parties. It's either this way or the highway when you vote. Mm-hmm. And I think the problem is one of the major parties is failing. It does not know what it wants to be. And that is a huge issue when we've divided a country into a 2-party system.
They literally have no platform. They have no public platform. During the campaign, all of the crazy things that Trump was saying and all the things that he said he was going to do, what he was planning on doing in his second term, they do not have a platform. So for a party to just wander in this fog and have no direction, it's a rudderless ship. It's embarrassing.
Yeah,
what I will give them
the death cult, right? Because they're they have no platform. I mean, how many times do you need to lose at every branch of government? And you're oh, we'll still keep going that way.
Yeah,
exactly. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. I will say, in my opinion, this is me. I will say that in 2016, during that election between Donald Trump and Hillary, I think they had a platform. It was certainly not the platform I agreed with, but I think you saw a little more unity from the Republican Party. But now it's there's 2 scales to it. It's either really crazy, some people like Liz being a little bit sane, and then the other people not knowing what they want to be. It's such a mixed bag to where they're just all floaters. Nobody sees eye to eye in that party because they all want different motives that don't align with each other.
I'm going to support your statement. I think the crazy people are also the people that don't know what they want to be.
Exactly.
I think that Trump touched on people who didn't have somebody as redneck and allegedly crazy as them. And then he put a face to that by being out there. And they were just oh, he's like me. Yeah, he's got money, but he's got the same ideals as me. He's racist, xenophobic, blah, blah, blah. That's me. And I think that that's why they identified with him so much. And now that he's not the president, they're well, what do we do? What do we do? I personally think they're lost.
In a crazy way. I mean, you're so right. In a crazy
I know
way,
I'm right.
in this crazy world they wouldn't have lived in, they've
Yeah.
lost their crazy platform leader.
Oh,
That's
he's
the thing.
the president still in their mind. By
It's
the way.
yeah, Marjorie Taylor coming up saying Trump won on her mask. It's like, girl, bye. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to something a little happier. So anyway, as we know, the Super Bowl happened a few days ago. I, like a lot of people that I ran into, did not watch or even turned it on to see Miley Cyrus acting a fool with Billy Idol at a pregame, talent show that looked like it was shot during my 6th grade year of middle school. And so anyway, in the midst of all of that craziness and hubbub of activity, we certainly had Tom Brady returning to the field for another Super Bowl and being considered by many to be the GOAT, the greatest of all time in his field. So anyway, I know that, it's been proposed that we talk to the other co-hosts about who they consider to be the GOAT in a field. So it can be any field that you like, from TV to journalism to movies to football, if you want it to be, if you disagree about Tom Brady. So Veronica, let's start with you. If you had to pick one category and then say who the greatest of all time person was in that category, what would it be? And then who would it be?
I mean, because we're, Super Bowl just happened, it's on my mind. So I was thinking sports. And I was like, it's fine if you want to think he's the GOAT of football. Whatever, I don't care about football. But of all sports, I don't think so. I mean, I feel like Simone Biles and Serena Williams have a pretty good say on that. And they're not jerks that support racism.
Allegedly.
Allegedly take PPP loans and like buy a yacht with it when there's like small businesses struggling. But
completely alleged.
Allegedly.
Look, all I'm saying is the only thing that might not be alleged about Tom Brady, because he's getting up there in years at 43, maybe it's not alleged that he needs some icy hot after a game. You know what I mean?
Joe and I are both in our 40s. Cut the crap.
You can't be 43 and out there doing that. My goodness.
Okay, first of all, though, I have to ascertain something. Can you be a GOAT and still be a jerk?
Yes.
I don't think you can. I think you cannot. I think it
I
has
think
to be part of the package.
Okay.
I don't think you have to be Miss America when it comes to being a GOAT. Sometimes people in their fields who have become GOATs have only gotten there by a certain way. In my opinion, Veronica brought up, her opinion is the opposite.
Well, I also think about people that could have been GOAT but never got a chance, like Colin Kaepernick.
Mm-hmm.
We had this all like, oh, we care about Black lives now. This football, and then we're like, Colin, where are you? Didn't see him in any of the footage.
I encourage everybody to check out our very in-depth analysis of that from last week's show. It was really interesting when we had spoken about that. But Emmy, let's go to you. What category are you picking here, and who are you saying is the GOAT of said category?
Oh boy,
I hate him. So I have 3 categories.
Okay, just one.
Acting field. For movies, it's going to be Meryl Streep. She's the GOAT. Like, don't even try it.
Okay.
But I have to say, for daytime, it's going to be Susan Lucci. I was going to do primetime, but then
see, Emmy and I come from the soap background.
It would be primetime.
I don't know.
Susan Lucci's a good one, though. She's amazing. She's so nice. Yeah. Susan Lucci, she's so nice.
Oh,
she is the face of it.
She's accomplished, and she's a nice person.
Yeah. So that makes her go.
I mean, she was she was the only daytime star, allegedly, who ever reached more than $1 million of salary. So,
but also, if you say Susan Lucci, whether you're, probably not the younger generation, but whether you're Casey's age or whether you're 100, you know who she is.
Yeah.
And that to me signifies a GOAT.
If you were born 2009 and before, you know who Susan Lucci is. is.
Wait, hold on. For prime time, this may sound controversial. Someone can jump in and correct me. What about the cast of Friends? I think that they might be goats. Like the cast in general, not like them.
I think they're goats in their own right. With primetime, it's so hard though, because with primetime, you have to divide it into categories, in my opinion. Like, someone could say Mark Harmon is the goat of criminal television, or like Mariska Hargitay is the goat of, NBC primetime, or Ellen Pompeo is the goat of medical drama. You know what I mean? Like, you almost have to divide it into categories for that.
Who in prime time has had hit show after hit show after hit show after hit show?
Well, definitely not anybody from the cast of Friends.
Allegedly.
Girl, I've seen the ratings. Look, I loved Matt LeBlanc in episodes, but only 600,000 people watched that an episode. So anyway.
What about Julia Louis-Dreyfus?
Well, I mean, yeah, why don't you go for a sitcom cast?
She's had sitcoms after sitcom. Both of her sitcoms were like really big. And how many Emmys has she won? Like 1 billion?
So many. I love Julia. I was a huge like New Adventures of Old Christine fan.
Oh, I forgot about that. She won an Emmy for that too.
Canceled way too soon in my
Yeah.
Oh no, for me to deep.
Oh, I love
I've never seen an episode, but I heard it was funny.
Oh, the best.
Yeah.
But Joe, let's go to you. Pick a category and who's the GOAT in that category for you.
Can't wait for that.
So I'm a Raiders fan. I'm not going to talk about Tom Brady because I still have some old wounds that need to heal.
Joe is like, I don't know her. he Mariah Carey, Tom Brady.
I would love for him to say that.
I'm gonna go with my my GOAT of all time in terms of performers. I'm gonna go with Dave Chappelle.
Oh, comedians?
Just performer in general.
Whoa.
Listen, you got the Chappelle Show, which was to me like one of the best comedy shows that they ever put on TV. And his stand-up routines, both pre-show and post-show, his routines and his conversations that he's having now are incredible. He's incredibly smart, incredibly funny, and he knows how to push the envelope. And I love that. I love that every day, all day, every day.
Oh, he just gave you your check, didn't he? No. I'm gonna have to disagree with your GOAT. That would be Eddie Murphy, dear.
Yeah, because Daddy Daycare was fantastic. So anyway,
yeah, he can have a couple clunkers, but Eddie Murphy raw.
No, I do love Eddie.
All of his earlier movies.
Murphy.
Come on.
Hilarious, but I've heard that his personality wise, like.
Oh, okay. Can we leave personality out of it? That doesn't matter.
We're talking about GOAT.
Greatest of all time, not nicest of all time. You ain't no GOAT. No, just kidding.
I agree with you.
And I love Dave Chappelle too. He's actually one of my inspirations for why I started stand-up.
He's also transphobic, but that's another story. Anyway.
Wait, Eddie is or Dave Chappelle?
Dave Chappelle.
It's a controversy with Dave Chappelle.
Yep.
So anyway, so I, it took me I really kind of meditated on which category I was going to choose, because of course I'm a big soap person, but I think what Emmy said, Susan Lucci fits the bill. But so I decided to look at journalism. And out of all the journalists out there, I'm going to say Barbara Walters is the GOAT of journalism. This was a woman who shattered the glass ceiling. She has the most successful daytime talk show of all time. And even after she left, it continued to be successful. Here it is at season 24. The View isn't necessarily my favorite show to watch anymore, but there's no denying how popular it is. And then, she was the first Today girl, as they used to call it when they were very sexist. She interviewed dictators. She interviewed celebrities. She interviewed presidents. She interviewed criminal politicians. I mean, Barbara Walters did it all. And I loved her 2020 specials, her Oscar specials, everything. I mean, there will never be another Barbara Walters ever again. And even though she's retired now, I feel as though when we lose Barbara someday from this world, it will be, the face of journalism will change forever. I mean, she, in my opinion, is the GOAT of journalism, and there's no arguing with that at all. I mean, come on, it's Barbara.
Barbara.
I also like Sherry O'Terry's impersonation of her.
And who can be impersonated like that? You know what I mean? And Barbara loved that impersonation. And you know, her final episode of The View, they showed a back and forth interview between she and Sherry O'Terry dressed as her. It was Barbara interviewing Barbara. I mean, she was somebody with a sense of humor. She was somebody who was always serious and on the battlegrounds and ready to hop into it. My God, this is a woman who would ask dictators, have you killed people on live television?
Yeah, she did.
My God, she had a pair of big, huge balls. I mean, Barbara Walters is just amazing. And again, nobody will ever match her, ever.
Do the impression. Go ahead. You want to. I know. Somebody has to.
I can't match Barbara. I wouldn't dare.
Just give me a quick 2020. Just a quick.
I knew he wanted to do it. I knew it.
Just do one. All right.
What a mess. What a mess. This messy show. So anyway, speaking of legends, I think we certainly now have to talk about a legend who left us, and another well-known actor who left us as well. We'll start out with Christopher Plummer, the legendary screen and stage icon who passed away at the age of 91. His wife has said that he did pass away from head trauma caused by a terrible fall he took. Veronica, as an actress, as a screen and stage professional, what does the passing of somebody of Christopher Plummer's caliber mean to you?
It's like, feels like an end of era. I mean, he's been part of people's lives from everybody grew up with Sound of Music. And then on top of it, I mean, someone so versatile that came from stage, that Sound of Music was like kind of not good enough for him, actually. That ended up being like making his career, because he's like this, accomplished stage actor, Shakespeare and everything. And then I love how that he had this long career, even recently when he won awards for the Beginners movie. Like, that guy was unstoppable. And it's like, I can't believe he's gone.
He won an Oscar at 82.
It's so insane.
What happened now?
And he looked hot all the way through his life.
Oh my God, right?
You should like aspire to be somebody like that.
But yeah, I mean, Christopher Plummer, you just say the name Christopher Plummer, and much like Barbara Walters, it just sends shockwaves throughout the industry, because everybody knew who Christopher Plummer is. He's one of the, golden greats of screen and stage. You hold him to such high caliber. His name brings about respect. So yeah, I mean, Hollywood truly lost, one from the golden age, and one from such an era that will never be duplicated again. Another passing of a star that was quite shocking was Dustin Diamond. Dustin Diamond, who played Screech in every incarnation of the teen sitcom Saved by the Bell, and was even in talks to possibly make an appearance on the reboot after multiple alleged troubles, has passed away days after he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. Joe, what does this mean to you, having come from the era where you would have grown up with Saved by the Bell and Dustin Diamond on screen?
So every Saturday morning I did watch Saved by the Bell. I'm willing to admit that. I did come from that era. All things being considered, he was annoying on the show, and he was intentionally annoying on the show. But you just hate to hear something so tragic, especially, someone who had, their ups and downs in their, their own personal life and their career. It's just one of those things that you just hate to hear something like that happen to somebody that you kind of did grow up with. It's to me, it's just a reminder of, how fleeting people's, their lives are, and just how important it is, to cherish the performances that they left behind, regardless of whether they were the annoying character on a show or they were the endearing characters that, that we love and remember from anything that we watch. It's just one of those things that just, it's the reality of life, I guess. But, Saved by the Bell was a great show growing up. Taught me a lot of life lessons. Inspired me to get a giant cell phone that was, with the antenna.
Right.
But yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate to lose anybody at any time, but especially somebody that a lot of us did grow up with. A lot of people in our
And
age.
especially, to think about, he never got a chance to fight against something that attacked him. And I find that so sad, because when I heard about his passing, when I saw the article, flash upon my newsfeed on Facebook, I could only really, as I was thinking about him and what a loss it was, I was also thinking about Shannon Doherty, another 90s teen TV star who was battling breast cancer, stage 4. And so, it's so weird to see people you grew up with and watched on screen and were entertained by, fight these very huge uphill battles. So, Emmy, what does the passing of Dustin Diamond mean to you?
Just like Joe, maybe not in the same household, but I would watch Saved by the Bell. I'll take it further. I watched Saved by the Bell. I watched Saved by the Bell in the new class. I watched Saved by the Bell in college, and I watched Saved by the Bell in Hawaii.
Oh, years is terrible.
Shut up. The new version
man.
of Saved by the Bell was horrific, and I'm glad that he wasn't on it. It was disgusting and gross, and no. But just like Joe said, he was part of my childhood. He was allegedly around the same age as me, and I grew up with him.
Oh,
literally, I grew up with this guy. I remember watching the first season. What was it called? Good Morning, Miss Bliss, before it was Saved by the Bell.
Yes, before
I was laughing because I remember
episodes.
this stuff. Shut up. I remember this stuff. This is the part that nobody is getting. Screech was the first white character obsessed with a black girl. Like, what? I mean, that's insane. And he was so annoyingly funny. And then when Tori Spelling finally found a role that fit her acting as his girlfriend Violet, oh my God, it was, I gotta rewatch that now.
Oh, those are the days.
I'm like, I was bummed. Yeah, he was a porn star. Yeah, he was fighting with the cast and whatever, but he's like that troubled brother that you kind of just love anyway, just because he's part of your family.
Yeah, and when you take into account his alleged troubles, and then you would hear, when I read the article that, possibly he could come back for an appearance if everything works out on the reboot. I found that amazing. Because he was there in every incarnation of that show, and I find that just beautiful that they still wanted to possibly reach out to him to see, hey, can we get you back for an episode? Would you be interested in that? So yeah, I mean, 2 huge losses and 2 very different art forms. Certainly, moving on now, as we all know, it is Black History Month. And here at JLJ This Morning, we would like to take time out of our shows in February to honor historic Black figures, starting with Frederick Douglass, who was a escaped slave who ended up becoming famous for his oratory and incisive, in-depth anti-slavery writings. He was an abolitionist, he was a writer, he was a social reformist, and even a statesman. So, Emmy, what is such a historic Black figure such as Frederick Douglass, whose legacy lives on? He died in 1895, but here we are. We still have books about him. We still have movie portrayals about him. His legacy has lived on for so long. What does that mean to you as we head into Black History Month and remember the figures that came before?
So on all platforms of my social media, I'm trying to every day post something about just like you're doing historical Black figures, whether it's a slave, whether it's Laverne Cox, who changed the face of acting for trans people, whoever it may be. I started off the month watching Roots, so I'm kind of like, I don't know. That was a lot. I've never seen it before, and it was a lot to take in. So, good old Frederick. Some of these people, I wish I met them, just to hug them and thank them for everything that they've done. I don't want to start crying, so you can move on to the next person.
And I certainly get where you're coming from. You're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of history. And he's a figure that stands out because he escaped from his slavery and then went on to lead some of the biggest reform that had ever been seen in that era. Veronica, what does this mean to you? And especially, looking at Black History Month as a whole, what does that mean to you as a person to remember, much like I brought up to Emmy, to remember those figures that came before us to hopefully set up a brighter tomorrow?
I mean, I think, recognizing the minorities in history is so important for anyone, whether you're Black or Asian or something else, because it all is part of, fighting for equality, which we're still dealing with now, and that we need to come together for it. It's just funny to me, growing up, I went to school in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and we weren't taught about Black history except for three figures, and Frederick Douglass was one of them. It was them, Rosa Parks, and who was the third?
Okay.
It was it wasn't very many people, you know what I mean? Oh, Martin Luther King. I think that was the third one.
Yeah.
I think that's the safe ones that we're allowed to know, but it's the white version of history. But apparently we're taught that I'm discovering now is different than what happened.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. I remember, and I knew the truth after some point, but you look in elementary school, I know I wasn't the only one who had a school in which Christopher Columbus Day was highly regarded, and treated him as a amazing man. We got the day off of school. We would read a picture book about him. And then I got to middle school and they were like, no, he was a murderer. And he, basically decimated and wounded many different sectors of the world. And, it's always crazy to think about how things are portrayed in different grade levels and in different schools across the country, Black History Month being one of them. When I lived in Michigan and went to high school there, it was very in-depth. I learned new things that I had not known before, but previously I had come from a majority white community that, like you, Veronica, you had three people, they were talked about in a 45-minute class period. You never heard about them again.
and Utah is asking kids if they want to elect out of Black History Month.
Exactly. And now we're seeing stuff like that.
2021.
Yes.
As if we had the option of opting out of white history.
Then we wouldn't have to take history.
Exactly. It's super boring growing up.
But Joe, our social studies department was pretty good about kind of telling every side a little.
Not really.
Sort of.
No, I mean, Agawam is Agawam. It's they whitewashed it.
It just sounds like it would be bad at teaching history. Agawam, right away. That's like nails on a chalkboard.
That's a Native American name.
It just seems like it would be terrible at the way Joe always talks about it is what I mean. He's like,
Yeah.
Agawam was Agawam. I'm like, oh no, that tells me something.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound great.
No, it doesn't. No, the way Joe brings it up is what I
In
mean.
the
Is that
80s and
it always
90s,
sounds like it
not.
just goes downhill from
We're
there.
talking about all of us being from northern states, the supposed liberal, educated states. And at the end of the day, the education system in this country focused on the same topics that most other educational systems around the country did, which is the white hero complex,
Yep.
the whitewashing of history, to talk about all of these great white Americans, and
Without a doubt.
you even have to have Black History Month.
Well, I just discovered on Amber Ruffin's show that the reason that is because the textbook had to be approved by the Daughters of the Confederacy. So that's why it's like only their side of history that was like allowed to be distributed.
I love her, by the way. She's
Yeah.
fantastic. I
Amazing.
adore her. She is, and don't get me wrong, it's great what Samantha Bee is doing, but honestly, Amber should have gotten that time slot. But now she's on Peacock, and more people, stream stuff and they watch it on television. So, and she has a great
shows
book.
at the same time.
Yeah, she has a great book out, by the way. If you guys have not read it, pick it up. It's amazing.
I will say, to Veronica's point, I haven't, when I was growing up in Agawam, I was, how many, Joe? Like one of two Black families in town? Maybe three. So I'll be 100% transparent here. I did not like being Black. I wanted to be like everybody else, especially when Little Mermaid came out. I was like, why can't I have red hair and green eyes and just be cute? It wasn't
And a fishtail?
Yeah, I didn't want that. I just wanted the red hair and the green eyes. I don't know. I was little.
No, but you bring up a very good point. You live in that truth.
Mhm.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Well, you know what? I'll propose it as a question rather. Is that something that you still struggle with, Emmy? Those years of feeling ostracized? You know what I mean?
To be 100% honest, it wasn't until I came out as trans that I was like, Hooka, you are a strong and powerful Black person. It doesn't matter what people think about you. What do you think about yourself? And I'll take it even a step further. When Black Panther, the movie, came out, that opened my eyes to the difference between African and Black. And suddenly I started really deep diving into what it is to be a Black person in the United States. And ever since then, it's been like this huge awakening that I didn't have when I was a kid. And watching Roots was amazing. But I will also tell you, when I did my Ancestry DNA last year, finding out that I am part Cameroon, which are the first slaves to hit West Virginia in the US, I cried my eyes out. Finding out that, these people, that's why Roots hit so badly, because these people were living their lives. Kunta Kinte was in the woods trying to find some wood for his brother to buy him a drum, or make him a drum, not buy him. And then they just got snatched up. And I just was like, imagine if I was minding my own business and somebody took me away. I mean, they'd probably bring me back home because I'm so talkative, but whatever.
That's why you're on a panel show.
We want to take someone else.
That's why you're on a panel show.
Yeah.
And we have that conversation off the show as well, Emmy. I was homeschooled my 8th grade year before we had moved to Michigan, because my mother was fed up with the school district, and she felt we weren't being educated in the way she wanted to see. And she had me as an 8th grader. She rented Roots, and it was a part of our history section, and we watched it. And I think Roots is just one of those miniseries that everybody needs to take the time to watch, because the education in there is so valuable. And it should I think roots should be shown in every single school at a certain grade. I think it needs to be a drawing focus during the study of Black History Month. In 2021, it can't just be about three figures in a 45-minute class that you never hear about again in your textbook. It has to be more. More has to be done, in my opinion.
And I will tell people, if you're not getting the education you need on Black history, go and find it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You know, just do your own research.
Yeah.
I was in first grade at Robinson Park Elementary School, and I was just so excited that I had learned how to read, and and that I was looking at longer books, chapter books, and I was just really excited about the prospect of being able to go up to the library, which was over in the older grades wing. And I used to be able to pick out a biography that I wanted to read. And, the first one, you'd look at Thomas Edison and Amelia Earhart and all these, these great white folks. And then I pulled the one for George Washington Carver. And I remember that being the first real introduction. I was like blown away that here was this Black American who had done these amazing things, had this amazing history, and I would never have heard about him. Never would have heard about him throughout the course of all my studies in history and whatever the case is. And if I hadn't picked up that biography, and it's amazing to me that the education system still has to, we still have to find these small niches for segments of our population. We're all Americans, and telling the story of America requires a much broader perspective and a much more inclusive perspective, because if you want to call it a melting pot, if you want to preach about the Statue of Liberty and all of these things that make America great, then you have to own all of the parts of it. And that's the good parts, the bad parts, the dirty parts, and I think that's hopefully where we're going to get to at some point. But it's sad that we have to designate a month, because that's how much, an entire population of a group of our population has been just completely eradicated from history for years.
Most certainly.
And they're not the
only. So as we come to a close here this morning, Veronica, where can our viewers find you on social media to connect with you about more trending topics?
Follow me at Veronica Ding.
Wonderful. And Miss Emmy, what about you?
Miss Emmy Morgan. Especially
wonderful. And then Mr. Joe, what about you?
I changed my Twitter handle.
Yes, you did.
Shocking.
Yeah, JDubs413. I might even change my Instagram to that too, so that we can get multiple accounts under one. I can do like an Veronica type of announcement.
Who are you right now? I don't even recognize you.
Listen, I'm trying to pump it up a little bit. I'm working on
it. He's like, find me everywhere except Parlor.
You will never find me on Parlor.
Right. I said except.
Yeah.
Anyway, you can find me on Twitter at KCS Hutch, and you can find our show on Twitter as well at JLJ This Morning. You can also find us on Facebook too at JLJ This Morning as well, like our Twitter, and come discuss the show with us, come discuss trending topics with us. We want to hear what is impacting your life the most, because after all, the whole world always needs a good discussion. So come discuss it with us. We will see you next week, and thank you for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day.
And happy Lunar New Year and happy Valentine's Day.
Yay, Valentine's.